Retail in the Eurozone area fell by its largest margin in 8 months in December. Today I'm joined down the line by Christian Schulz, Senior Economist at Berenberg Bank, to discuss the results today. Christian, thank you for joining me. The results came in lower than expected at minus 3.4%. Was this what you were expecting?
We were expecting a lower figure than consensus did. We expected for the month-on-month 0.6 down. That was mainly driven by the weak German figure that was published last week already. December saw a steep decline in German retail sales, and since Germany is about a third of the Eurozone already, it was predictable that the Eurozone figure wouldn't be very good either. Because it's Germany, and Germany is overall actually not doing too badly in this crisis and showing increasing signs of recovery, we're not too worried by this, but clearly retailers in the Eurozone are really deep in trouble at the moment.
We saw a marginal uptick for the Eurozone retail sales in November. What was this due to, and why have we not seen this trend continue?
That's an interesting point, I think, in general to observe about retail sales. It's a very, very volatile series, and it's very often revised quite substantially. In fact, we already had deep revisions, downward revisions in retail sales for the Eurozone. We've in the past had a very strong upward revisions as well. And for instance, for Germany, we are expecting upward revisions of the December figure, which very often is, when it's first announced, is lower than it will be in the end. So it's a very volatile series. It is influenced by weather, for instance, by the number of holidays that fall into a month or don't fall into a month, how weekends lie, how holidays lie. So it's a very volatile figure, and this year, November, was probably a month where weather was better than average, and some countries, so shoppers were out in numbers to shop. Whereas December probably saw some worse weather than usual in some countries, and that may have a downward influence on retail sales in that month.
Do the results today show the worst of the Eurozone slump is not yet past? Are people still thinking negatively about the area?
I think the data shows, or maybe reveals that last nail in the coffin for Q4 GDP data for any hopes that the Eurozone may have avoided a decline in GDP in Q4. So Q4 was probably very weak, and the retail sales data really confirms that. I think going forward, the outlook is improving. We've probably seen the trough of the recession in the Eurozone in Q4 already. All the confidence indices, and today we had the purchasing manager indices for the services sector, all these confidence indices show that probably October last year was the trough. Since then, things have been improving. It's an uneven rebound. Not all countries are coming out of the recession at the same time. Germany is clearly leading the way. Italy is showing some positive signs, so is Spain. But, for instance, France is really lagging behind at the moment.
You mentioned Germany before and France just then. December retail sales for both countries showed lost ground. Was this a surprise at all, and do you think today's figures reflect these previous results?
The retail figures in France and Germany were down indeed in December, but I don't think they really reflect the underlying trends in these two countries. Germany is a country which has a very highly competitive export industry, very low unemployment, low inflation, the budget balance, the fiscal budget is balanced, so the country doesn't have any fundamental problems, and as soon as confidence returns, it can return to growth, and that can affect retail sales and consumption more generally as well. France, on the other side, is a country with big competitiveness problems where the fiscal side is really not doing very well at all. A country that needs to make a lot of adjustments both on the fiscal side and in terms of structural reforms, and so far is shirking these, which shows up in the confidence indicators of these two countries, which are really diverging. Economic confidence is rebounding strongly in Germany and is really weak in France, weaker than even in Italy and Spain. So the retail sales data for December, where France was doing better than Germany, does not reflect the underlying fundamentals of the two countries. They are diverging, but it's Germany that is the strong part and France that is the weak part.
Lastly, Christian, all eyes will be on the ECB meeting on Thursday. Do you think results today could influence the rate decision?
Well, it's really mixed signals for the ECB. On the one hand, we have had a strong boost to confidence, which of course stems from the ECB's own safety net, which they announced back in July and August. So we've had this rebound in confidence, which really points to the Eurozone exiting recession maybe in spring already and returning to substantial growth by the end of the year. At the same time, lending conditions for companies are still very weak. We've had monetary supply growth tanking, or not tanking, but maybe declining towards the end of the year. Lending is still weak. The economy is certainly not out of recession, and the retail sales data that we've had today confirms that. So it's mixed messages from the data for the ECB at the moment. So what we're expecting is that the ECB will stay put, that they will not change rates at this meeting. They will, in fact, also not change rates at any of the next meetings. We are expecting that if the economy makes further progress and the overall Eurozone returns to growth by the end of the year, we will be discussing about a rate hike rather than a rate cut from the ECB towards the end of the year. Of course, we also have to keep an eye on the exchange rate. Because the higher the euro, the stronger the euro is, the more dampening effect on inflation that will have. So overall, lots of mixed signals from the data, but generally I think positive. So we're not expecting the ECB to cut rates or do anything else at this meeting.
That was Christian Schulz giving us his insights into retail sales today. Navdeep Roar will be here tomorrow with an interview surrounding the EU budget deal. Take care.